With the regular season coming closer and closer to an end and the postseason almost upon us, a lot of Lions fans are now starting to wonder who we could potentially play in the playoffs. But could perhaps the perfect game be setting itself up? We're going to talk about it in today's episode, folks, so stay tuned.
We used to be a team no one respected. We used to be a team no one feared. That was then. This is now.
First victory of the year on the line. Goff's got it. Back, looks, throws, end zone. Yes! Caught!
You know who we are.
10-5, end zone, touchdown Detroit Lions!
And you know where to find us. We won't be far. We'll be on your front porch waiting for you. We are the New Era Lions. And
we are driven by Detroit.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving in right now. But before we dive in, I just want to say to everybody, thank you all for those that are coming back to the show. Thank you all for your view, your support, your patronage. Thank you all for everything you do. You guys are an amazing crowd, and I'm ever so thankful to have the support and the loyalty of the subscribers that I have. And to those that are tuning into my show for the very first time, I just want to say thank you all for giving my show a shot. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope you enjoy the content, and more so, I hope to gain your subscription if I've earned and deserved it. And with that being said, I want to say to everybody, I hope you all are having a great day. God bless, and let's dive into the show. So here's the thing, folks. Like I said in the intro, the postseason's almost here. Like literally, we have 5 weeks until the regular season is done, and then we start the postseason. Then we start playoff football. So the end of the year is coming pretty quickly. Not only in the term of a literal sense, because we're in December, but in a literal sense of the football season, like the actual regular season. And here's the thing. As we get closer and closer and closer to that ultimate finale of the regular season, many teams are still technically in the playoff race and they're vying for a spot. Now, as we all know, there are only 7 spots on both conferences for the playoffs. You have 7 spots for the AFC, you have 7 spots for the NFC. And some teams like the Titans, the Bears, the Panthers, Patriots, Commanders, Giants, and Cardinals, they're either eliminated, like the Panthers are, they're the first team eliminated from playoff contention, or they're very soon going to be. But there are still also, on top of that, a large amount of teams, a large amount of middling teams that are trying to win to potentially get one of those very precious wild card spots. And the thing about it is that when we take a look at the Lions are not one of those middling teams that are really trying to duke it out for a wild card spot like in times past. The Lions are all but guaranteed at this point to get a playoff spot. And the reason for that is because, well, 1, they're 9-3, 2, they're a division leader, but at the same time, it would take almost a monumental collapse of the Detroit Lions to not get into the playoffs. And that's very unlikely at this point. However, though, we're not talking about the Lions potentially collapsing. What we're now talking about is what Lions fans are now starting to come to the realization of, what they're now starting to come to the conclusion of. And that's that the Lions are most likely going to finish in the seeding somewhere between seed number 2 and seed number 5. Now, all of that depends on a couple of factors. The primary one is how many games we win when we finish out the end of the year. We could win all of our games. We could win 4 out of 5, 3 out of 5, whatever. The point is how many games that we win. But at the same time, the other thing that is important is how many games our conference opponents, those that are directly in the NFC, win as well. Now, with all that having been said, to understand the whole nature of playoffs, which most people kind of understand, but I'm just using it kind of like as a setting up of the conversation topic here. Let's take a look at the remainder of the Lions' schedule for the rest of the year. As we all know, we're getting set to travel to Chicago to play the Bears on Sunday. Then we play the Broncos at home for a Saturday night primetime game. Then we're back on the road to go to Minnesota to play the Vikings on Sunday. Then we go to Dallas and play the Cowboys for Saturday night primetime again. And then we end the year with the Vikings on Sunday. Well, actually, is it on Sunday? Yeah, I think it is on Sunday. We just don't know what time on Sunday it's going to be. The point of the matter is we have 5 games left. Now, the way I'm looking at the schedule, again, part of it's me being an optimist, part of it's me being a Lions fan. I look at this and I see the Lions winning four of the 5 games, most likely. I see them sweeping the Vikings because right now the Vikings are starting to run into trouble with their quarterback situation, with their offense. I see us sweeping the Bears because we've already beaten them once, and I think we're going to beat them again. I think we win against the Broncos at home. But I'll be honest, I don't see us beating the Cowboys. That's just my likely opinion. I honestly think that the Lions are most likely going to finish the year 13-4. Their best record not only in franchise history, but their best record in probably 30-something years. So, that's what I am seeing based off of the schedule. Now, again, some people are probably going to look at me and be like, listen, you're just saying that because you're a Lions fan. Maybe so, but the fact that we're 9-3 does give me at least a little bit of cushioning to say, hey, there is a reason why I have that thought process. Now, at 13-4, the Lions are pretty well set up in the playoffs. Like, they're going to have a high seed. They're definitely getting a playoff spot. That's not a debate for most people. And again, most people, most analysts, most Lions fans, again, have already come to the realization that the Lions are going to make it to the playoffs. But now the question that a lot of people are starting to get into is, well, what team could we potentially play in the playoffs? Because again, we're most likely going to have one of those high seeds, whether it's 2, 3, or 4. We just don't know where we're going to fall in there yet. But when you're talking about teams like that, that means we're going to have a home game. But who are we going to play? Are we going to play the Vikings? Are we going to play the Packers? Or maybe a team like from the NFC South that's like the Bucs, the Saints, or maybe even the Falcons. Who knows? These are types of teams that most people have considered when we're talking about this. But I'd like everyone to kind of try this one on for size. How about the Los Angeles Rams, folks? Now, yes, I can already hear people saying it as soon as I brought it up. The Rams. Think about this one, folks. Can you imagine, sheerly just imagine the amount of ironic fate it would be if the Lions wound up hosting the Los Angeles Rams for a wild card spot game? That would be epic beyond all measure. Because here's the reason why. And the story just writes itself. The story just is literally right there, prime for the taking. It's like the lowest hanging fruit, but at this point, it's the sweetest hanging fruit. Because you have to think about it here. You have Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford coming to Detroit to play Jared Goff, Dan Campbell. Now, why is that epic? Because of the history that exists between the Rams and the Lions organizations, because of the fact that the Rams and Lions already swapped quarterbacks. The fact that when they swapped quarterbacks, the Rams went and won their Super Bowl, and the Lions are now priming themselves up to be a Super Bowl contender. But also because of the fact that Matthew Stafford was the quarterback here in Detroit for so long, just like how Jared Goff was the quarterback for the Rams for a good period of time. Again, you're talking about just an epic storyline that literally just writes itself. And I'm telling you this right now, just my personal opinion. I don't care what other wild card game is going on that week. The Lions game against the Rams, if that were to happen, that would get primetime coverage. Nobody else would really care unless they were a super diehard fan of their own team, other than to see, okay, Rams versus Lions. It would be probably the biggest and best wild card game that's ever happened in a long time for the wild card playoff round. That's how epic I think that kind of a matchup would be. And I'm telling you this right now. There would be literal standing room tickets for that playoff game in Detroit. Not just to say the fact that it's a home playoff game in Detroit, but Matthew Stafford and the Rams coming into town to play the Lions. Oh my Lord, Atlanta, that would be the most ridiculous playoff game you ever saw in a long time. Now, having put out all my enthusiasm and excitement for something like that, we have to ask ourselves this question. How could this happen? Part of that, we have to take a look at the Rams schedule, just like we look at the Lions schedule. When we take a look at the Rams schedule, this is what they have. They're traveling to Baltimore to play the Ravens this week. They're then at home against the Commanders, and then again at home against the Saints for Thursday Night Football. Then they travel on the road to the New York Giants. And then they finish out the year traveling on the road to go play the 49ers. Now, when we take a look at those 5 games, to me, the Rams are most likely, out of those games, probably only going to win 3 of them. And that's the Commanders, Saints, and Giants. That's my most likely scenario. Because I really don't see the Rams beating the Ravens on the road, and I really don't see the Rams beating the 49ers on the road. That's just my personal opinion. Now, obviously, things can change in an instant. Maybe the 49ers decide to rest their players on the last week before they go to the postseason because they know they might have a shot to make that number 1 bid. I don't know. The whole point of the matter is that if I'm just looking at how things stand right now, the most likely outcome for the Rams is that they finish 9-8. So, At 9-8, the Rams can make the playoffs. Hell, we just saw the Bucs last year at 8-9 make the playoffs. So it's more than entirely possible that a 9-8 team can make the playoffs because, oh, that's right, the Seahawks last year were 9-8. They made the playoffs. Hey, we were 9-8. We almost made the playoffs had the Rams beat the damn Seahawks last year. That's my whole point. It's entirely theoretically possible, which at this point, that's all we're dealing with is in theories. So, I decided to go on ESPN and I started playing around, with their playoff simulator. So saying, okay, if this team wins and if this team wins, how does this whole thing play out with the seeding? So I started trying to find various scenarios in which I could see, okay, how is it possible that the Lions could host a playoff game and where the Rams come to Detroit and play them? And what I was able to find is there are 3 scenarios that I could find that were most I hate using this term, but most likely to happen. And there's a reason I hate the term, and you're going to understand why here in a moment. So let's take a look at these 3 scenarios that I was able to find out. Scenario number 1. The one scenario that I was able to find that could potentially work was this. The Rams win every single one of their games, and the Lions win all but their games except the Cowboys. So the Rams win every single game that's remaining, and the Lions win every game except against the Cowboys. Now, I'm going to say this right now. There's a reason why I said 3 scenarios that are most likely. And I'm not saying that the scenario itself is most likely. It was the only 3 that I could really find that were actually just plausible. But of those 3 plausibilities, this scenario number 1, is probably the most unlikely in my entire opinion. Because let's think about this here. Going back to that Rams schedule, like I said, I can see them beating the Giants. I can see them beating the Commanders. I can see them beating teams like that. But what I can't see them beating is beating teams like the 49ers and the freaking Ravens. Those are 2 Super Bowl contending teams, one for the AFC, one for the NFC. I don't think it's very likely that the Rams could waltz into their stadiums and beat them. Now, is it entirely possible? Yes, it is. Again, as Bruce Lee would say, don't underestimate your opponent because, again, as we also know in football, any given Sunday, somebody can win. So, is it possible that the Rams could win out? It's possible, but it's not likely. And the reason why is, again, I just don't think the Rams are good enough to beat the freaking, 49ers and the Ravens. So, for me, I just don't really see it happening. But let's just, again, play devil's advocate here. If the Rams were to win out and they were to finish their year with all the wins that are left, that then would put them at the number 6 seed most likely. And if the Lions won all of their games except against the Cowboys, they would be the number 3 seed. So then at that point, the Lions are at home at the number 3 seed and the Rams are on the road as the number 6 seed. And if I recall correctly, you'd have an 11-6, you'd have an 11-6 team going up against a 13-4 team. So that's scenario number 1. Now, scenario number 2. The Rams, like I said earlier, they win all of their games except the 49ers bout and the Ravens bout. But the flip side to that coin is that the Lions win every single game that they've got left. Now, again, this scenario is more likely than scenario number 1. But again, I still have a hard time trying to fathom this scenario coming to pass. And the reason why is because the Cowboys are considered a Super Bowl contender, much like how the 49ers and Ravens are for the freaking Rams. So for me, we have to take a look at what the Cowboys have to provide. 1, they have a really, really damn good defense this year. 2, their offense is doing pretty damn good as well. But we have to think about this even more so. The Cowboys are at their home stadium. We're going to play the Cowboys in their place. The last time we went to play Dallas in their place, it didn't exactly go well for the Detroit Lions. Now, I know that's a different time, different circumstances, different teams. But the point of the matter is the Cowboys are playing really, really good football right now. And the Lions, while their offense is able to put up points and are still pretty explosive, our defense can't stop a cold in winter. So for me, it's just like, I don't see how the Lions could potentially win against the Dallas Cowboys with what we've currently got right now. I think we can beat anybody else that's on our schedule. Broncos, Vikings twice, the Bears. I think we can beat them with what we've currently got. But the Cowboys, that's one I can't really deal with in reality as much because that's me is like, okay, we would have to go into Dallas and we would have to have everything, both offense and defense, go right from kickoff until the final whistle blew. That's the only way I could see us beating Dallas because that's how dysfunctional our defense is right now, and that's how good the Cowboys are playing right now. But again, if there's one thing I know about the Cowboys is that every now and again they have a game where everything just goes kaflooey for them. maybe the Lions get lucky, and that's the game where the Cowboys just go absolutely haywire. Who knows? But if we're playing devil's advocate in this scenario, this is what would happen. The Rams at 9-8 would fall to the number 7 seed, and then the Lions would have the number 2 seed. So again, the Lions would have the number 2 seed, meaning they're the second best team in the NFC Conference, and they're going up against the worst team to make it into the playoffs in the NFC Conference, in the Rams. So again, that's another scenario I was able to see pan out. Now, the third scenario. This scenario is probably the most likely of all the plausible scenarios I was able to pull out. And this is what happens in this scenario. In this scenario, what happens is the Lions and the Rams, they win exactly as I say they're gonna win. The Rams finish the year 9-8. They win their 3 games, and they lose the 2 games against the 49ers and the Ravens. Pardon me. The Lions do the exact same thing. They win their game against the Bears, the Broncos, and their 2 games against the Vikings, and they lose against the Cowboys. So, okay, everyone's doing exactly what I thought they were going to do. However, though, the only thing that makes this scenario a little bit hesitant for me, a little bit of a risk, is that the linchpin for this scenario to work is unfortunately the damn Green Bay Packers. Because I'll say this right now, part of the reason why I was having such a hard time trying to make scenarios work is because the Packers are really a thorn when it comes to trying to understand how this whole thing could work. Because the Packers are playing really, really good right now. So even though I'm a Lions fan and I don't like the Packers, I'm not going to totally discredit their ability to win against opponents. So it's like, okay here, I don't want to be completely unfair while I'm doing these scenarios, but if I'm going to try and make this work, it's got to be somewhat within the realm of plausibility. Somewhere where it's like, okay, it's not too far-fetched or it just looks like I just don't give a damn and I'm just trying to make a scenario work for the sake of making it work. But the way I was able to make it work was that the Packers finished the year 8-9. And the way I see this is that for whatever reason, the Packers lose against the Giants. That right there is probably going to tune most people out for this scenario. But here's what I got to say. First and foremost, the Giants are going to be at home, number 1. Number 2, the Giants are coming off of a bye. And number 3, the Giants are keeping the quarterback that they've had the last couple of weeks that's played really good for them, which is Danny DeVito. Now, there is a possibility that the Packers go into New York and they just absolutely stomp a mud hole in the Giants. That's totally possible. But I like the fact that the Giants are coming off of a bye, which means they've had a chance to heal up. They've had a chance to study the Packers, which gives them a better chance to win. That's the only reason why, in this scenario, I have it that way, because it's like, listen, the Jets have had more time to rest and prepare. They are keeping the quarterback that's helped them get to where they're at right now. That, to me, at least gives them a possibility of victory. So if I'm going to give it a possibility, just for the scenario's sake of talking about it, let's just say the Packers lose against the Giants. Then the Packers then are at home against the Bucs. The Bucs are still a decent, good team. The problem is that, again, it depends on when you catch them. Again, like I was talking about with the Cowboys and the Lions, maybe the Packers are having a bad day, or maybe the Buccaneers are having an absolutely great day, and everything just goes right for the Bucs and everything goes bad for the freaking Packers. Because let's remember something here. The Bucs started the year 3-1, and they're fighting for a playoff spot just like everybody else. So again, it's not like they're just going to be like, oh, well, woe is us, we're not going to show up to play. So again, there is a possibility. Not as good of one, in my opinion, against the Giants, but we'll see what happens. Then, I see the Packers going into freaking Carolina, and they're going to beat the Panthers. I'm sorry, the Panthers just suck. The Panthers, they're already eliminated from the playoffs. They're the first team in the NFL right now that have been eliminated from the playoffs. I don't see any possibility where the Packers lose against the Panthers. So the Panthers are going to lose that one. They're going to beat the Panthers. The Packers will. Then the Packers go to the Vikings. Now, again, the one thing I know about division rivalry games is they're always amped up. They're always going to be whatever. And again, the Packers, along with the Vikings, they're vying for a playoff spot. So again, it's going to be a fight. It's going to be a freaking just absolute brawl. But in my honest opinion, I think with the fact that, again, the Packers are traveling to Minnesota, that gives the Vikings just a slight edge. Again, for the sake of the scenario, I have them losing against the Vikings. But then again, they're at home against the Bears. I see them beating the Bears. That's why I come to 8-9. But again, in order for this scenario to work, everything that I'm talking about with the Packers has to fall into place. Otherwise, it does not work. That's why I'm saying these are the 3 most likely scenarios that I can find. But the chances of it happening at best would probably be about 50%. And most of that is hinging upon scenario number 3. Because again, I don't see the Lions beating the Cowboys and winning all their games, and I sure as hell don't see the Rams winning all 5 of their remaining games. So again, the majority of this whole 50% of likelihood is hinging upon scenario number 3. Because again, the Packers are a young team. even though they're doing really well by comparison for this first year under Jordan Love, they're still trying to figure themselves out. So, again, that's the only reason why I even entertained that scenario. But getting back to the whole thing about the Rams and the Lions, you have to think about it here. If one of the scenarios that I talked about somehow pans itself out, again, despite how far-fetched it could be, I again want to reemphasize how freaking epic of a playoff game it would be if the Lions were to play the Rams and Matthew Stafford was to come back to Detroit to face his old team, and Goff was able to do the same thing to face his old team that's coming to Detroit. Again, that would be epic. But obviously for us Lions fans, the cherry on top would be getting that win here in Detroit, because you have to think about it here. If the Lions not only get the Rams to come to Detroit and play them, and then to pretty much put the pièce de résistance, which would be to win in Detroit, dude, you would literally have absolute pandemonium in the streets, because first and foremost, it's the Lions' first playoff win in 30-plus years. But then on top of that, you're beating your old quarterback that left to go to another team to go and win, so you're kind of also getting a little bit of a revenge factor. Then you got to think about it from the other perspective. Jared Goff would have so much vindication if he were to face his old team in Detroit and then beat them. Again, it's just a story that literally has so many layers of just juicy freaking narratives to it. It practically writes itself. That's why I honestly want a scenario like this to happen, because I believe that if the Rams come to Detroit and play the Lions, we're going to beat them. I don't care if Stafford's played here for 10 plus years. It's like, listen, this is a completely different Detroit Lions team than he was used to when he was here. It's a completely different culture. It's a completely different animal than what he's used to. And I'm telling you this right now. If he thinks that the Lions were freaking amped up when he went to the playoffs with them, imagine what it's going to be like when he walks into Ford Field and that crowd is literally standing on its feet and it's bellowing as if there's freaking 100,000 people in that stadium and not only 66,000. That's my whole point. That's why I'm saying, if this scenario plays out, if the perfect game is able to fall into place, like if the NFL actually was quote-unquote scripting everything, this would be the perfect script. If that were to happen, dude, I don't care what other venue you've got. I don't care what other game you've got. Everybody is going to be tuning into that game. The Lions and Rams game, it will be top billing. That game will literally be on most markets. And again, unless you're a diehard fan for whatever team is playing opposite of the Lions at that time, most people are going to be tuning into the Rams and Lions game. I could see it happening as if it was literally right in front of me. That's how epic, that's how freaking juicy this kind of a game would be for the NFL. It literally would be perfect. But, again, this is kind of me thinking outside the box. This is kind of me like daydreaming a little bit, but I don't care. It's fun to think about. But having said that, I think I'm going to cut the episode here. So with that having been said, I just want to say thank you all for watching yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you liked what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode that I got coming at the end of this one. I also encourage y'all please to do this. One of these three things: like, comment, and subscribe. And I also want to encourage, please, if you've subscribed in the past and forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and you've not had a chance to do so, first and foremost, again, please, 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 I highly encourage y'all to subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out, and I'm thankful for every single subscription that I get. But I also want to encourage y'all, please, not only just subscribe, but also make sure you turn on that bell notification icon as well, so that way you never miss any more content that I push out. Again, subscription numbers are always going up, but we want to turn on that bell notification icon, so that way as soon as I push something out, you've got something new to watch, we can have more conversations, and it's great for everybody to keep coming back, so it's very easy. Likewise, to also help in that regard, please share this content to your Lions friends and family members. Share it here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it everywhere and anywhere you can with everybody and anybody you can. The more we share it, the more we're able to get people in. The more we get people in, the more subscriptions and the better conversations we can have about football and the Lions in general. And with that having been said, I just want to again say thank you all to everybody for watching this episode. Thank you all for your view. Thank you all for your patience. And just thank you all for just being wonderful human beings and fans. And if I just earned your subscription, welcome to the family. If I haven't earned it yet, hopefully you'll come back and I'll get another chance to do so. But with that having been said, I just want to say to everybody, God bless. Again, hope you all have a great day. And until the next time I see you, I'll see you all in the next episode.